In this video, I'm going to walk through a case study of essentially a client that gets leads on demand all the time from Company House in the UK. And this is essentially the Google Sheet with all the companies and company information. Here is the Python code to actually get the information. And here is the stream where we send it to end-to-end essentially. And I'm just going to be walking through the entire build down here and essentially explain why I did things and what my thoughts are in terms of what I've learned from doing this. But the entire goal was essentially that to find what companies are in a situation where they are distressed in some sort of way. That's what the client wanted to find out. And he wanted to find out, he wanted to figure that out or find out when they were in a distress situation or in that sort of environment right now, like right away. So there could not be some sort of delay on that information. The only reason I mentioned that is because when I initially started building this out, I built out a scraper that will essentially go into the Gov's website and then get all of the information and then enrich that data with the company. But the problem is that, of course, we were looking at old data or maybe new data. It was all mixed in a mumble jumbo state because we were simply searching for a lot of keywords, and in searching, it doesn't mean that every single one is going to be in a situation where they are distressed. So that first build didn't really work, which is this one that you're looking at right now. But now when you understand like what the goal actually is, because as you can see here, the manual monitoring is that you need to search for a company yourself manually. Then you need to go through the company profile to then figure out if there are any signs of distress. And if you, yeah, I mean, think about it. Are you going to sit there and look through 1,000 companies every single day simply to find out if these companies are having any issues? That's going to take forever. He even suggested we should use a VA, and I was thinking to myself that is never going to work because they're going to be shifting through so much data that is the cost of that is not going to be feasible. And but so the major issues with the manual path pretty much is that the data is the data is all random. So if you're searching by keyword, you might find a company that is in distress, or you might take to go through 10 different pages until you find a company that is in distress. You will also need to transfer the data from one place to another, to your Google Sheet, for example, instead, if you do find a company. And also you need to have some scoring system to know like which company is worth looking into. But the goal is that we wanted to create a system that is running 24/7 and streams that finds companies that are in distress all the time. So right now, when I'm speaking, the code is running in the background and it's filling up the Google Sheet with new leads if there are any new leads at all. So we're at 121 right now. And the only types of leads we're looking at is when they have a risk score above 10. So it does take some time, but every single time somebody does something in the UK, like in terms of like filing their documents or running into liquidation, we will get that signal and then we will rank them. Oh, there you go. And then we will rank them with a score. And if the score is above 10, they will get in here. So this is what happened here with this company. So yeah, and so the key points essentially, as I mentioned before, we gotta find the companies in real time. We gotta add them to Google Sheet. We gotta rank them and put them in the Google Sheet essentially. And the way we go about doing this is that we have the Company House Stream API. Essentially, it's a notification system, is what I will call it in simple terms, because it's pinging you all the time. And as you can see here, these are just people doing things. So companies house, filings. Some of them are being hit more often than others because filing is something a lot of companies do a lot of. So you might see that all the time, very much. But this is how it looks like when it's like the data is coming in all the time, essentially. And that's the streamer in Python in this case, which is essentially uploaded to cloud where it runs on the cloud all the time. And then the second thing is that we can't really, I mean, we could essentially build out the entire thing inside Python. We could do that, of course. But instead, what we do is that we send the information to a webhook in end-to-end. And in doing that, we essentially send the data here, and then we have a switch depending on if it's a filing history, company profile, company insolvency, company charge. We then send that through this loop here and then append it to a data table. And the reason for why we do a data table is because there is a lot of requests here. And if you try to do this with Google Sheet, you're going to get hit by that you're doing way too many requests. Because when I was saying that this is coming in all the time, this is quite literally firing off all the time right now, like every second. It's firing off. And if you try to add that to Google Sheet, it's not going to work. So you have to use something else. That's why I decided to use data tables inside of Anytone in this case, because it's easy and it goes pretty fast to add it in there, and it saves it, and I can then work with the data. Then the next step is essentially that, because once we have the data, we only have the company name and the number and where it came from. But we do need to add some information like directors, what type of charges, and also score the company. So we need to add some more information. That's where this flow comes in. And this flow runs every 10 minutes. What it does is that it gets the data from that data table we just created. And then essentially, what it does is that it just runs through and fills in the missing data that we need. So company profile, directors as well, get director's address, check company profile, check company charges and loans, get company profile status and overdues. And then we add all of those things in a JSON file for a company, and then we score them eventually. And if the score is above 10, as mentioned before, we add them inside the Google Sheet, because that's where the client want to see the leads. And the other ones, we just update them as done, and just that's essentially it. We don't do anything more with them, because at that point we're done. There's not much more to do with them. You could, of course, send them off somewhere else, but based on our risk score, there's not much more we can do with them. And here is essentially the Google Sheet with the information at the end. So as you can see, we have all of these statuses, risk score, which is the most important one, essentially. And in the output, this is the information we get in Google Sheet. So what we essentially have here is a lead generation system for a company or a person in the UK that is looking for distressed companies that have access to them in seconds, like seriously right now. And it's, I can just show you like here, you can see here that it's just firing off. And there you go. There are some even more. And every single time, and I mean, it's firing off all the time. So every single time it fires off, that's a new company that might be in distress that we could then essentially send a letter to, reach out to. Maybe they have some properties we can buy at a discount because they kind of need to offload a lot of assets pretty fast. And that's essentially it. But the one thing I will leave you with is that with this system, you don't really need to only look at distressed companies. You can actually genuinely use this for other things. I don't know, like you can maybe you just want a lead system where you just want to have access to people doing things and you want to sell your automations to them. This way you could have like incoming companies that are quite active in different niches that you could simply just go, well, I mean, these companies are coming in here. I might as well reach out to them because they're active. And I do have the information to the director. Maybe you shouldn't send some sort of letters to them in that case, but you can probably find their phone number or email somehow with this system over here, essentially. So yeah, that's just something I just realized right now, actually. And the reason for why not a lot of these things are not going through here is because I do have a signal that tells me if they are in distress. Because if we don't do that with filing history, we will seriously get 1,000 plus every hour. I think it's going to be more, because this one is the filing history is just a spam. It's just so much that you need to have some sort of block, so you don't really add all of them, because or else it's just going to have like 1,000. Yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, either way, this is like, I will say the biggest learnings I took from making this is probably that the more questions you ask in the initial build, the easier it is, number one. Number two, the closer you can work with the person that is going to use it, the better off you are. Because the more feedback I got on the things I was building, the more I could fine tune things and make it the way that made sense for them to work. While in isolation, it was quite easy to assume a lot and remove things and add things because I thought that this was needed. But once I showed it to the client, it was like, nah, this is not really what we need. But by the way, can we add this? And that made me realize that, oh, I just removed that thing because I didn't think you will need it. So that's another thing. Like just get as much information as possible about what they want and what is important. Because the more information you have, the, the more right it's gonna be. Because I built out this entire thing 6 times because of that. Because he will add something, and then I will make these changes, and I will realize that okay, based on these changes, we probably need some more logic. We need to change things around. So that's why I arrived at this point over here. Because with this build, it was more about searching on keywords and using advanced systems. But then he kind of realized that, well, I just want like the latest leads, really, like the people that are in distress right now. So then I realized that, oh, so we can't really use that. That's why eventually we arrived at this streamer instead. But yeah, I will say that. So either way, that's the biggest lessons I learned from doing this. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.